Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Hashtag Leadership What's on Your Mind, a series to inspire you and inform you on your leadership journey by telling stories. So this week we're going to be talking to Paul. How are you doing, Paul? Are you okay?
Yeah, not bad. How are you?
Good, thank you. So Paul was introduced to me and was told that he needs to come on the podcast. So I'm really excited to find out his story. And we've got 20 minutes. You guys should know by now by listening. So I'm going to start the clock. Paul, no pressure. You just tell us who you are, what you do, and again, your leadership journey.
Sure, yeah. So I'm Paul Corke. I am the owner of my own business. I have an innovative leadership consultancy called Leadership Architecture. I've actually published 3 books on mindset. And recently, the most recent book is called Reframe Your Mindset, Redefining Success, which I'll come back to in a moment. And also just recently published something called the Mindset Journal, which is a journal to help people maintain the mental health and enhance the mindset during these times of uncertainty and change. And I'm also a coach as well. So my particular business is all about leadership and mindset. And that's based on the fact that I've got over 20 years experience in the corporate world, working in the financial sector. And the majority of my roles back then were learning and development, design and developments, leadership developments mainly, and organizational effectiveness roles. So I've always been into the type of stuff that fascinates me around developing your mind and how the mind impacts what we do and our capabilities. So to tell a little bit of a story, I mean, that's what I do right now. But if I go back to growing up at 70s, 80s child, so no mobile phones, no technology, very, very lucky to have a wonderful childhood. And it was just a wonderful time. And I was fortunate. My dad was from Liverpool. And as you know, the passion in Liverpool is always football. So I went to the match with my dad at a young age. And then we got season tickets back in 1985. And went to match religiously. It was the family thing. So, football was more than just the football. And he taught me what all good football was about. And I was fortunate at the time because Liverpool were brilliant as well. But the big significant part of my story is I was at the Hillsborough football disaster back in 1989 and very, very fortunate to survive that particular disaster. And, I was fortunate as well. We've been there the year before. And the year before, because we've been there, we knew the ground. So come 1989, when we actually got to the game, it was a beautiful day. We got to the game and outside there was already a swell, a crush outside the ground. And me and my mates, we wanted to get in the centre of Leppings Lane. And we ended up we were pinned to a police horse. We ended up getting under a police horse and getting into the ground and going down the tunnel. And you couldn't get in, you couldn't push in. And this is just a very quick story, just to set the scene for why I've studied and developed what I've developed. So in the end, because we couldn't get in, my mate said to me, come on, what do you want to do? And I said to him, do you know what? Let's just go round the other side. Now, it sounds daft. If you'd just gone into the ground and you hadn't been there before, you'd just see the tunnel. And sadly, more people died in that tunnel than died at the front of the penned fences. And it was literally 2 minutes from when the gates opened and everybody ran through and ran into the tunnel that we walked out of the tunnel and round to the other side. Now, I'm not going to talk much more about the disaster because, as you know, it was just a terrible, terrible disaster and terrible cover-up as well. But the way I look at it goes, as an 18-year-old boy at that particular time, for me, I felt guilty that I was alive, but I had to make some kind of sense of it. And the sense that I made was, I believe personally that we're all conditioned by life experiences. So much so we have default settings, and some of those will be positive and some of those will be negative, right? And empowering, self-limiting. So I've still got a fear of crowds naturally because of that. But one of my positive default settings in life is that I believe that life is a gift because I was lucky I was one of those that survived. So part of my journey over the last 30 years has been to research happiness, mindset, success, so I can help other people to live a life where they can live to the full potential. So that's a kind of starting point for me. Now, when I go on my particular leadership journey, initially after that, I kind of lost myself and, I had a couple of jobs and did the usual things, working in shops, ended up working in Wade-Smith in Liverpool and became stock supervisor. And that was the start of my leadership journey. But
You know,
to
that's one of the,
then,
sorry to interrupt, but that's one of the questions I usually ask is, are you aware of when your leadership started? So you've just covered that. So that was where you think that kind of, that started your leadership
yeah,
thoughts.
do you know, I believe that we're all leaders. So I actually think that my leadership journey really started when I started studying philosophy and psychology and started to have this understanding in what makes people, looking at mindset and success. So I think your leadership journey, when you start to study that type of stuff, actually starts there. If you talk about frontline management, some stock supervisors, when I managed the team and led a team, but I'm a massive believer that we're all leaders, which I will come back to. So from there, I ended up working at Ray Smith for a couple of years and then moved into a company because one of my friends worked in the training department. He said, come and work at Capital Bank in Chester. He said, come in, you'll work on the phones to start with, but someone like you'll end up in training. And it was true. I did a couple of years on the phone selling loans to Bank of Scotland direct customers. And then within that couple of years, I ended up in training. And the amazing thing was they had an amazing training department. And they taught us, firstly, how to coach, then how to train and facilitate. And it was just an amazing time to learn those skills, especially at a young age. And I was into the mindset and stuff anyway, success, and I was reading that. And then all of a sudden I've got this opportunity to coach and develop people. So from there, it was working at Capital Bank, merged with Bank of Scotland, merged with Halifax, became HBOS. And I was there 12 years. And, I'd managed a couple of small teams, but then from there I was headhunted to go to Barclaycard. Now, Barclaycard was an amazing experience because I got to write my own job description. And I went there, and after 6 months, they completely restructured. So I ended up becoming training manager, which wasn't the job that I'd gone to do. And I ended up with this big team. And it really, when you go, I know when I first started managing and leading people, this was the real big team, the real big challenge from a leadership perspective. And it was like the Hair Bear bunch. I'd one of every type in the team, and it was such a challenge at the time, and there was a lot of travel that went with that. So I guess what happens is, as you have these experiences, you start to frame what you think leadership looks like and what good leadership is. And I don't know about you, you learn also because you have some good managers yourself and you have some bad managers, and they both teach you different things in different ways. Yeah. And then from there, I did a lot of travel and ended up moving to MBNA. And as MBNA, I was in a lot of different roles, which you mentioned before, but head of leadership development. And MBNA at some point got put up for sale. And we actually had to go to our parent company, Bank of America, and say, look, you put us up for sale. We haven't sold. Can we do things a little bit different and a little bit more creative and just move away from the corporate norm? And they actually gave us the money and they gave us the leeway. And what was great at the time is I was able to develop what was a responsive leadership development strategy. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment because it's the way that I believe that you should develop leadership in an organization. And that was at the time when we first got put up for sale. Unfortunately, there was redundancies being made, so it wasn't a good time. But where we got to is employee engagement was at 52%. And within a 4-year period, with that freedom, with being able to develop the employee engagement strategy, with being able to develop and build leaders' capability, we got it to 92%. Now, the way that story finishes is that MBNA, we were put in maintenance mode. Then we went into growth because Bank of America realized they needed to grow the company to make it more attractive. And then MBNA was sold to Lloyds Banking Group. When Lloyds Banking Group come in, everything that had developed and what I felt achieved in MBNA was, that they had their own way of doing things, and that's absolutely fine. Massive corporation, Lloyds Banking Group. So that was my time then to go, this is my time to set up business. It's been a long time coming. I'd always had lots of ideas when it comes to leadership. So as I say, now I've got my own innovative leadership consultancy. I'm a speaker, and I speak obviously on the back of the books that I've written, and I coach as well. So, and the great thing is the Mindset Journal, where I've got it to right now. And the Mindset Journal came out of lockdown. So these unusual times that we now live in, obviously affected my business. It's affected a lot of businesses. So, I was going to Barcelona before lockdown to speak, and that event got cancelled, and a number of other events. And you go, well, I did a lot of face-to-face stuff. So you go, you've got to quickly adapt in this world. And that's the the sign of great leadership is that leaders they're agile and can adapt. And I thought, I've got to do stuff quickly, because if I don't do it and don't be seen to be doing it, you're going to get left behind. So I did some free webinars around mindset and leadership, and advertised those through Eventbrite. And that led then to doing some mini pod clip very simple mindset tips and techniques on LinkedIn. So a bit of vlogging, so people could see me visibly and what I was doing online. And then that just morphed into, do you know what? All these concepts that I've started talking about, I can develop a mindset journal that can really help people right now. Some people are coping really well, but some people are struggling. So the mindset journal itself is literally, it's there as a practical tool that anyone can pick up to help them right now. And obviously, as I said, to maintain the mental health and enhance the mindset. So that's kind of a whistle-stop tour of me going from, major tragedy with Hillsborough and what I learned from it. Life is a gift. How can I help people, to my particular journey, and parts of that, the leadership journey, but to then head up leadership developments and build leadership development strategy to now, be in control of my own business. So we can obviously talk a little bit more around what I think about leadership, and I tend to talk about past, present and future, but I'll just pause a little bit there, just in case you've got any questions.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to point out that we're going to have the link in this for people to go and check out that journal for you. So we'll make that happen for you people to go and find it, because I think it's great, and I love that story so far. And I just pick up on one thing, actually, because I like the use of language. And a lot of the threads that you use then, you use the great example of calling everything a challenge. I pick up people quite a lot, and I've done some content recently about the difference in the use of one word, and people saying that things are hard, and actually saying things are challenging just changes your mindset completely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was going to ask you about some of the things that have been challenging in your leadership when we were back in the people leadership. I talk quite a lot about we're in the people currency. What sort of things can you share that you had challenges with leadership, and how you overcame that challenge?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I kind of look at it and go, if you're talking about me as a manager or a leader, I had different teams and different sizes of teams through my corporate career. And it's really, really surprising that sometimes you can have a bigger team and actually find that easier to manage and have less issues, because actually at the end of the day, if you've got a team of 20, 25, 50, however many it must be, you've only got so many people directly reporting into you. So the quality of your direct reports and the coaching around developing those as direct reports and trusting them, giving them autonomy and giving them, empowering them. And if you've got that right level of capability, they'll manage the rest of the team for you. So I'm a massive believer. What works well when it comes to leadership is I started in a position of trust, and I'm a massive believer in trusting people and giving them that autonomy. And the way you view what works well is that you go, if your team is working well, and what happens is that you'll be able to delegate. And if you've got the right level of capability, you'll slowly be able to give them some of the stuff so let's say they do 80% of the work and you're doing 20%. 20% of what you do is quite strategic. But what I need to be able to do is start to develop them. So start to then give them a little bit more of what I do, which then allows me freedom to get involved in some of the more proactive stuff I want to do. So I think that when the team's functioning well, you're able to do that. Now, of course, when teams aren't functioning as well, and generally it tends to be different types of personality that you have to manage. And I do think that, I've had teams of 2 or 3 people, and it's been a lot harder to manage a team of 2 or 3 people than it's been to manage this big team. Because just literally, the first 12 to 18 months tends to run quite well. And then after that, but if you've got some difficult personalities, that can be very difficult to deal with. Now, how do you deal with it? Is that it's, how can you put it? I look at it and go, the difference between being a nice manager and being an effective manager is that an effective manager knows when to give feedback and when to coach, and will deliver that at the appropriate times. A nice manager just likes being nice. And I think I learned the lesson of, I've learned on my journey of when I've been too nice, and you go, now they're taking me a little bit for granted because I've been too nice. So
Yeah.
I do think you learn that. And I do think as well with leadership that you learn is there's a spectrum, because some people will go, you notice in the workplace that there seems to be good managers, there seems to be good leaders, and it seems to be very rare that you get a good manager and leader combined. And I look at it and I go, well, actually, there's a spectrum there. And what you've got to realize as a leader is that you can flex up and down that spectrum depending on the situation. So I learned that. I think I went on a coaching course, and the coaching course brought that particular concept out. And it's one of those moments where you go, yeah, actually, I've got to be able to see and have the ability to see what points I need to be on that spectrum. Because this end of the spectrum is, I'm literally just giving them freedom to do what they want to do. But this end of the spectrum is, I've got to tell them what to do, and I've got to manage them. And actually, I want to spend really, 10 to 20% in this end of the spectrum compared to 80% in the other end, where I'm given that freedom and empowerment and autonomy. So I think leadership, you learn it as you go, and I do believe leadership can be learned. But I also do, just as an added point, is my real belief is that when I'm working with people, I'm developing them as leaders. And I said it earlier, I believe everybody's a leader. So leaders, really good leaders, create leaders. They don't create followers. And that's a famous saying, obviously.
Yeah. And again, I can see everything that you're saying and doing is, and again, one of the big things that, just to pick out just one thing that I sort of resonate with massively as well, is about that situational awareness. My big passion is to get people to just think. If you get people stopping being what I've deemed busy being busy, and you're giving them that time to think and reflect, there's so many things that people actually can action without even knowing about it. Yeah. We've got this 20 minutes goes, doesn't it? We've got 4 minutes left. I want to ask you a question. Okay. Yeah. So about the word mindset.
Yeah.
Okay. So where do you stand? I've had great conversations about people about what is mindset. I've got a big thing that I do. So as soon as I use the word mindset, I have to put in there. And again, it resonates with my military background with that. Whenever I say mindset to somebody, it's got to have the word action right behind it. Because it's that kind of like, we can think great, we can be positive, but we've got to have that action. How do you explain to somebody about what mindset is?
Yeah, my mindset for me is about your attitude and your beliefs in life. So I talked about default settings a little bit earlier on, and we can have positive or negative default settings. And the big thing with mindset is you can actually choose your own mindset. And I do believe the quality of your thoughts will impact the quality of your life. But I do think you're quite right. One of the things that I always stress is that no matter what your thoughts are, you've still got to take positive action. And that is, you can think, you're not going to think stuff into existence. It helps, if you've got that positive, optimistic, adaptable growth mindset, it's the way to live in the world. Because you look at, we talked before, when you've got a situation like right now with pandemic, there's opportunity. Yeah, it's a challenge, but there's a way of framing it positively. So when you've got that type of growth mindset, that has got to be such a positive impact on your life. But at the same time, if you don't take action, it doesn't matter what you think, you're not going to get the results that you want in life.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. Because, and again, you'll laugh. It's kind of, I've worked quite closely with somebody that's taken mindset to the complete opposite of where I would take it. And we actually work really well together, like collaboratively, because what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for the other. We said before, didn't we, about everybody's different.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been one of the trigger words that has kind of come up since my post-military bubble, that I've had to kind of like think, what does that mean? How can I frame that? So that's interesting for you to sort of, and I like how you put that. So in the last couple of minutes, what do you encourage others to put in place for them to level up their leadership journey? What sort of key things can people start to do?
Yeah, so it's the same as when I work with organizations. If I was to say to anybody, I would say to them, understand what good looks like when it comes to leadership. So you can't be a good leader until you understand what good looks like. I do believe that we all have in our own minds, and we did pre-lockdown, we had our own definition of what success looked like, you know, why we were successful. Overnight, we've been hit by a pandemic, and all of a sudden we're going, what does success look like now? You know, we've been shaken up. It's freeze, unfreeze, and we will freeze again at some point because there'll be a new norm. So I guess with anything like that, I always say, well, if you want to frame the new norm, you've got to define what good looks like. So as a leader, a big thing as the starting points with organizations, with individuals, is understand what good looks like and then go from there.
Yeah, fantastic. Awesome, I like that. So we'll finish there. 20 minutes goes really quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, Paul, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Guys, if you're listening on the podcast provider, please make sure you send us a review, hit subscribe. You'll get to know when the next episodes come out. They're Wednesdays at 6 o'clock in the morning for the early birds. And then we've also got, you might be watching this on the YouTube channel as well, so you'll be able to see us and hear us. So make sure you hit the subscribe. The link's down below. You'll be able to go and see Paul's Mindset Journal. Make sure you go and check that out. And Paul, thank you so much again. And that's us signing off.
Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. See you next week, guys. Bye.